legislate morality. And his response would be, morality can't be legislated, but conduct can be regulated. So you don't have to like me, but we can impose consequences for your discrimination of me. So whether you want to go to church and sing hallelujah is not my business, but are we going to punish discrimination? The other thing is this, aside from whatever happened in the past hundreds of years ago, what's going on right now, for example, there are studies in the last couple of years, and when I say studies, I mean test studies, when they, organizations will send out a man and a woman, or a black person and a white person, and give them contrived resumes, and send them out for the same job interview. And time and again, for example, white males with a criminal record will get a job faster than equally qualified black men with no criminal record. And these are people who were just sent out as testers with contrived resumes. Discrimination is real and persistent today. So the question is, in light of that persistence today and now, aside from whatever happened hundreds of years ago, and in the reality that when you go and apply for a job, for example, you don't know, Joe, you don't know, Eric, whether or not you're discriminated against sometimes all the time, because that information is private. Now, if we're going to talk, now this is what I was hoping the con side would say, that they would say, let's get rid of affirmative action, any type of preference, and let's do some things that would put some teeth into simply enforcing equal opportunity. But you don't hear that. And the reason is because I had a professor, my first black studies professor, would say this is how dominant groups and minority groups always work. As soon as the minority group learns how to play the game, the dominant group changes the rules. This is universal. It's not a black-white thing. So whether it's women fighting for equality with men, just as soon as the disadvantaged groups learns how to play the game, the dominant group changes the rules. So, for example, why is it, if we really want to achieve equality without affirmative action, without preferences, why is it in the law all the time? Some of you in here are lawyers. We use things like burdens and presumptions all the time in the law. So we say, you're guilty until proven innocent, right? The state has the burden to prove you're guilty. But we have burdens in the law. We say, you know what? Since we know that certain things tend to typically happen, we have something called res ipsa loquitur. It's just a Latin phrase that means, you know what? When, you know, if the doctor cuts you up and leaves the scissors inside of you, he probably caused the injury that you had. We're not going to put the burden on the plaintiff to prove that. We're going to put the burden on the doctor to say, why'd you leave a scissors inside the man's chest? So then why, after 300 years of entrenched discrimination, if we want to have fair and square laws, would we not say, you know what, after 300 years of entrenched discrimination, why not put the burden on an alleged discriminator to show, you know what, this is who I interviewed. This is who I hired. These are the qualifications. This is why this woman didn't get the job, because we know women are victims of discrimination. This is why this Hispanic didn't get the job, but we don't do that. We simply say, hey, you're a plaintiff, you say you were discriminated against? Okay, go ahead, fork out some money and pay a lawyer and come sue me. Well, that's ridiculous, because most people don't have $20,000 in 2 years to prove a case. Now, Eric had mentioned that we've achieved things prior to affirmative action, and that's absolutely true. But that's like saying, you know what, because fortunately some Jews made it out of the Holocaust, that, you know, maybe the Nazis weren't really serious. They weren't really, of course they were. They were serious. They were slaughtering people. The fact that a few people made out doesn't mean that that was not a terrible system that affected most victims terribly. I'll cut.
This has been an absolutely wonderful discussion. I want to thank Patrick John and Joseph Morris and Anthony Anderson and Dr. Eric Wallace for really enlightening us today. I think one of the advantages of a debate like this is it generally doesn't change our minds. We come in here with pretty predisposed ideas on what we think is right and wrong, but it always enlightens us and gives us a new perspective. So yes. I want to thank each of our panelists.